Hi everyone, thanks for listening to another episode of Dogman Encounters Radio. I'm Vic Cundiff and I'll be your host for the show. If you've had a Dogman encounter of your own and would like to speak with me whether in private or on the show, please go to dogmanencounters.com and submit a report. I'd love to hear from you. If you'd like to help support the show by becoming a premium member, please go to dogmanencounters.com/podcast to sign up. Memberships are only $2.99 a month. By becoming a premium member, you'll be able to download episodes onto your mobile device and listen to them commercial-free wherever you go. Also, if you'd like to check out the new Dogman Encounters t-shirt store, please go to dogmanencounters.com/store and take a look around. Buying a t-shirt or sweatshirt there is another great way to help support the show. As always, thanks for listening. Alright, let's bring on tonight's guest. If you listened to episode 171, you'll remember tonight's guest. He came on that episode and told us about the first Dogman encounter he had. Unfortunately, he recently had another, and that's what he's here to talk with us about. Dan, thanks so much for coming back on the show.
Thank you, Vic. Good evening.
Thanks for coming back. Dan, for the people who missed you on episode 171, please tell them about yourself.
I'm 55 years old. I've been married for over 30 years. Have two beautiful children, son and a daughter, and a retired police officer with over 30 years of law enforcement experience. Currently, I'm an Orthodox Anglican priest.
Dan, you're a good man, and it's obvious you've carved out a really good life for yourself. What are we going to do about these Dogman encounters you seem to keep having?
I wish I knew, Vic. This second one took me totally by surprise. I didn't expect it because of the region that we were in, and I think that took me totally by surprise. I was just dumbfounded that I was able to see one in that type of terrain.
Yeah, you wouldn't think that you would, but you never know. After having that first encounter, did you back off on how many trips you took into potential Dogman country, or was it business as usual for you?
No, it was business as usual because I love the mountains, and like I told you before, I'm not going to let something like this drive me out of something that I love so much. I am more cautious. I follow David Paulides' instructions on what to do when you're out in the woods. It's made me a lot keener on being aware of my surroundings, and I always make sure that people that are with me, because I never go alone, I always have people with me that also are aware of the situations that may come up and how to deal with them appropriately.
Considering how much you enjoy heading out into the wilderness, it really is a shame that you have these encounters tainting how much you can enjoy it. It really is a shame.
Yeah, it is. And the only thing that I do is because of my faith. That gets me through. I'm not going to give up and not go out there when I know I enjoy it. My family's enjoying it. My friends enjoy it. Like I said, I'm not going to let them run me out of the woods. On this last occasion, though, it wasn't woods. It was desert terrain. So they can be anywhere at any time.
That they can. Considering what you risk losing by coming on the show and talking about your encounters, why did you decide to do the show tonight?
People are not being told the truth about these creatures, that they're out there. And they should be told. They shouldn't be put at risk by not telling people about these type of creatures because they can kill you. They are an apex predator. They are not fearful of anything from what I've seen. And it just upsets me that people can't be upfront and honest about this and tell people that they're out there. It's like they're afraid to say anything, and that upsets me.
It is a shame that something that could be so potentially dangerous is kind of hushed the way it is. The place where you had the encounter we're going to talk about tonight has a bad reputation, to say the least. Please expand on that for us.
The area is called the Devil's Punchbowl. It is part of the Los Angeles County, California Park System, and it's within the Angeles National Forest. And basically, the terrain is where the desert meets the mountains. It has sandstone outcroppings that they're famous for. They have a spring there as well for water. It's a beautiful area for photography and so forth, but anything that's named after the devil is not a good place to go because there's a specific reason for that. And David Paulides pointed that out in one of his Missing 411 books called The Devils in the Details, where he documented areas that are named after certain things like the devil or Satan and stuff like that, and bad things that happen there. It doesn't have a good reputation.
Oh, I'd say it doesn't. Yeah, I think I've heard him talk about the place on some of his shows that he's done.
Yeah, he told me specifically that there was a case of someone disappearing out there.
Well, I wouldn't be surprised. Like we talked about before, Dan, it sure doesn't seem like a place where you'd even find a Dogman.
You wouldn't think so, but because of the water that they have out there, I think that's the only saving grace. They also have caves, so they may be cave dwelling, but they do have access to water out there.
Oh, I'm sure they do use those caves. It'd be crazy if they didn't. Because you were familiar with the warnings David Paulides gives about places with names like that, like you just mentioned, did you have any misgivings about going there?
Yes, I did. The two people that were with me, childhood friends from elementary school till now, Michelle and Patty, they wanted to go out there specifically to take pictures of the area. And after they told me the location where they were going, I said, no, I don't think you got to go out there. And they said, well, why not? And I said, well, usually things that are named after the devil have a bad reputation to start with. And I've heard bad things about that place. And they're going, oh, come on. We've had people go up there and take pictures. Nothing happened to them. And I said, listen, I said, if you're going to go up there, if you insist on going up there, I'm going with you.
Well, like my mom used to tell me before I'd catch a whipping, a hard head makes for a soft behind. I guess Patty and Michelle found that out the hard way.
Yeah, unfortunately they did. And they haven't been the same since.
Oh, I believe it. Before you tell us about your most recent encounter, please tell us about Michelle and Patty.
Patty is a retired U.S. Army lieutenant that was in the military police, and Michelle, retired deputy sheriff. Patty also has a service dog named Rex, who is also with us on this encounter. He's a large male German Shepherd.
And as the listeners are going to hear, Rex definitely plays into this. All right, Dan, please tell us about this encounter. Give us every last detail that comes to mind.
Well, this all started with a luncheon date that we had together, and that's when I found out that the girls wanted to go to Devil's Punchbowl for the photography, because they both have, in their retirement, they've done photography since then. And they're really interested. It's a hobby for them. So they said they were going to go up there, and I tried to talk them out of it. I said, no, I don't think you got to go up there. It's got a bad reputation, and any place named after that, it's not going to be a good area to go to. And they just kind of like back and forth with me, and then I said, okay, if you're going to go up there, I'm going with you. I'm going to be there for like your protection. And they kind of laughed and chuckled, and they said, well, oh, you're going to protect us. And, they were trying to make a joke of it. But I said, I'm serious. And they looked at my face and they could tell I was serious. So they kind of quieted down. And they said, okay, you're welcome to come, and I said, okay. So we went ahead and made plans on the date, which was Friday the 13th, which, oh man, I wish I had never stepped out the door that day. I forgot it was Friday the 13th. We drove up there, all three of us plus Rex, and we went out there and we were hiking the trails in the park. And you have to picture that this is an area that has large sandstone outcroppings in the earth. It's got canyons, it's got mesas, and it also has water, spring water. And it's a beautiful area. It is. It's a beautiful area, but it's just got that bad reputation. And we were hiking. We were out there hiking for hours. And during the hiking, the girls were taking pictures, and I was just basically standing by and taking in the scenery. And about 5 o'clock, it was starting to get dusk. Something happened that just brought it to my attention. Everything got quiet, and I mean quiet. You couldn't hear the bugs. You couldn't hear the birds. You couldn't hear any animals. You couldn't hear nothing. All you could hear was the wind, and that was it. And I stopped as we were hiking. We were going eastbound, and I said, hey, something's not right. And I told Michelle and Patty, I said, do you hear that? And they stopped and they listened. They hear what? And I said, that's the point. You can't hear anything. It's too quiet. Something's wrong. I think we need to go. And they looked at me and they could tell I was serious. And they said, okay, we're ready to go. We can go. So during this time, Rex is acting strange. He's growling, and I can't see what he's growling at because there's nothing around. He's just growling. And Patty's going, knock it off, Rex, stop. And he's just, he'll stop for a while, and all of a sudden he started up again. And then as we were getting ready to go back to the truck, Patty looked up at the mesa that we were below, because we were below in the canyon. The mesa was above us. And she goes, what's that up there? And I looked, and Michelle looked, and it looked like that avatar that you have on your Dogman encounters where the Dogman is squatting down. That's exactly what this thing looked like. And I said, oh, crap. And I got my binoculars out. I got a set of Army binoculars, which are some of the best in the world. And I got up there and I looked, and I'm going to describe it from head to toe. The thing had a wolf head. There's no other way to describe it. It had a wolf's head on it. And the coloring of the fur, or the hair, I should say, was beige, black, and white in some areas. It looked like a coyote coloring, basically. But it was way, way bigger. And it was scanning the horizon. And it hadn't looked at us yet. And with the sun setting in the west, it was hitting it in the face, and you could see the amber eyes. And I'm going, oh, geez. I said, I know what this is. And Patty's going, what is it? And Michelle's going, what is it? And I said, that's a Dogman. And they're going, what's a Dogman? And I said, let's just start backing away and start going back to the truck. I'll explain on the way. So we're starting to walk back to the truck. And then it stood up. And I said, oh, geez. And the girls just took a collective gasp. And Rex is he's starting to growl louder now, and he's starting to bark. And the thing stood up, and it looked down at us. And I'm thinking, oh, geez. 7 feet tall. I mean, shoulders, chest, just huge. Very thick. It had 2 arms and 2 legs, not 4 legs. 2 arms and 2 legs. The arms were long. The hands were man-like. They had claws coming out of the ends of the fingers. But this time, instead of like the first Dogman I saw would have man legs, this didn't. This had dog-style legs with hocks. But they were larger. They were much larger. They weren't skinny. And the feet appeared to be longer. And they also had claws coming out of the toes. And all of a sudden, it howled. A low, moaning howl like in episode 84. It sounded just like that. And it just set my blood, just went cold. And I said, oh, my Lord, he's telling us to get out of here. And he's looking down at us, and all of a sudden, I noticed that next to him is a dead bobcat. There's a bobcat laying next to him on the left side of his foot. And I said, oh, he just killed that bobcat or something. And I explained that to Michelle and Patty. I said, there's a bobcat next to him. It's dead. And they're going, let's get out of here. And I said, okay. So we started going back to, and I said, you guys go first. I'm going to cover our back trail, and we're going to get to the truck and get out of here. Now the creature, it's still standing. All of a sudden it turns. It's still looking down at us, but then it like jogged or ran going south along the mesa, and then it was out of sight. And that's the time that I got scared the most. I'm not scared of much, but this scared the you-know-what out of me. Because when you can't see something after seeing it, you worry it's coming down to either attack you or something bad's going to happen. So we ran and basically jogged back to the truck. And during that time, I kept my eye on our back trail, make sure that nothing was going to sneak up on us. And then, because I'm thinking there might be another one, just like I had in my first encounter, there were 2. I'm thinking this thing might have a partner. Maybe that's what he was howling for. All these things are running through my mind. We get back to the truck. We just load our stuff back up in there and get Rex in there, and we get out of there. Just took off. And that's when I explained to Michelle and Patty, I said, listen, this isn't the first time I've seen one of these things. And they said, what? What are you talking about? And I said, me and Ron went camping a couple of years ago. I said, we saw 2 of them over in the Santa Cruz Mountains, but they didn't look like this one. They looked totally different. And they go, tell us about this. So I went through the story that me and Ron had. By the time we got back to the house, these girls were in shock. I mean, I felt so bad for them because this was a big shock to the system that I don't know if, it's going to take them a while to get over this, if they ever do. Because they were just going, Dan, we should have listened to you. We should have never came up here. I'm not the type that says, I told you so, but I told her, I said, I hope you never come back up here again, ever, because I'm not going to. And Michelle said the same thing. She goes, don't even worry about it. I'm never coming back up here again. Are you kidding me? So, yeah, they told me that they will never go back up to that area again after what's happened and what they've seen and what they heard. I mean, that howl, that low, moaning howl. I don't know if it was a signal for other dogmen to come out. That was going through my mind. Everything starts going through your mind about a previous encounter. You just can't help it. It's like, oh my God, it's happening again. And it's just, that was the second encounter that I had. And it has an indelible impression on me, just like the last Dogman encounter we had, just like my Sasquatch one I had when I was younger. Same thing. That's what happened, Vic.
Be honest, Dan. When you first saw that Dogman, did you really say, oh crap?
That's not the word I actually used, but, being a priest, I have to watch my mouth.
No, I understand. Have you listened to the Dogman howl I played about 2 months ago on one of the episodes?
The only one I've heard is the one that you had in episode 84. And that's the one that sounded the most like what it sounded like to me. And that's that low moaning howl. And the only difference was the one that was doing it to us, it was longer and louder.
If that's the case, when you get time, if you go to dogmanencounters.com and visit the About Dogman page, there's a recording of a howl that a researcher from New York State named Dave submitted. I want you to take a listen to that and see how that compares to the howl that Dogman did that day.
I'll do that.
Great. After you have time to do that, please let me know what you think on how they compared.
I sure will.
Thank you. When it jogged away that day, did it take the bobcat with it or leave it?
It picked it up and it ran with it in its left paw, or left hand, I should say.
I see. Yeah, I was thinking it'd be kind of unusual for it to leave it, so I wondered about that.
It looked like it hadn't been eaten at all. It looked like it was a fresh kill, because the bobcat looked like it was whole. There was no bites or anything taken out of it. It must have just killed it before it saw us.
Well, when you make your living the way dogmen do, especially in an area like that probably isn't slopping over with resources, if you have a fresh kill like that, you'd be crazy to leave it behind.
Oh, yeah. In that area, besides bobcats, they have coyotes and the mountain lions. So it's got competition up there.
Oh, I'm sure it does. You said Rex kept growling before the three of you saw it, but do you think he saw it before the three of you did?
I think so, because of the way he was reacting. Maybe he didn't see it, but he probably felt the presence. Dogs have better senses than we do. He probably picked up on it way before we did, because that's why he started growling. And also, I forgot to tell you that the Dogman was a male, because we were able to see the genitals when it stood up, and it was a male Dogman. It had canine genitals.
Most dogmen that are seen are males, but a few females have been reported. It's not common, but it is reported.
Yes. And I think on the first encounter that I had, I think I told you that I thought that the smaller one that never got up and was just eating the deer carcass appeared to be a female. But the one that challenged us was definitely an alpha male.
Oh, it sure sounds like it. Do you remember if the wind was in your face or at your back when Rex was growling?
I think it was in our face. I could feel the breeze, so I think it was in our face.
Okay, that would explain why he detected that Dogman so early.
Yeah, I believe so. And like I said, he was growling at first, and then after the howl, his total demeanor changed. His ears went back. He was going around in circles, and he appeared like he was really scared, which took me aback because he's a big German Shepherd, and I would think that he would challenge anything that was going to hurt Patty. And this thing just scared the crap out of Rex.
Oh, I'm sure it did. I'm sure he didn't know what to think about it.
Oh, yeah. It took him by surprise, just like us.
When everything got quiet after walking as far as you had, did you start to have flashbacks from that first encounter you had?
I started thinking about it, yes. Because that's what happened the first time. Everything got deadly quiet. I mean, you could hear pin drop in the forest. That's how quiet it was. And the same thing happened here. No buzzing of insects. The frogs in the spring weren't croaking. Nothing. No animal sounds, no bird sounds, nothing. It just got completely quiet. And when that happens, you know something's about to happen.
What do you think it is that's behind this tendency for all the ambient noises to totally stop before people see Dogman? Any opinions on that?
I think it's fear. I think they're afraid. I think that they know there's an apex predator in the area and they don't want to get eaten, so they just shut up.
Yeah, that would make sense. When you first saw that Dogman, how close was it to you?
I estimate it was about 40 feet above us. We were down in the canyon and it was above us on a mesa.
I see. Did it seem to be upset that you were there, or did it not seem to care about anything but the bobcat it had been feeding on?
Well, I think it probably was upset because I think it probably took us as invaders of its territory, and I think that's why it let out that howl to basically tell us, hey, you know what? Time for you to go. Get out of here.
Well, sounds like he got his point across, didn't he?
Yeah, he sure did. And I think he probably considered Rex a threat because that's why I think he left that howl out. And it worked because Rex just turned into like jelly, basically.
Yeah, it sounds like it did work. When the three of you headed for the truck, you say you lost sight of him. Did that make matters more stressful for you or less stressful?
Oh, more stressful because you're thinking, where is it going? Is it coming after us? Does it got pals? Is he looking for, like a pack mentality where you got a pack attacking you? All these things are running through your head, especially after you had an encounter before this. And that's what happened to me. And I'm thinking, oh man, what if it's not alone? What if there's more than one? You can't see it. And when you can't see it, you get more scared than if you actually have eyes on it. And that's what worried me the most. I just wanted to get the girls and Rex out of there.
Yeah, that whole aspect of not knowing, that is the worst.
It is.
Now that some time has gone by, how do Patty and Michelle seem to be dealing with that experience?
They're still like in the shock phase. They really don't want to talk about it. I've tried to talk to them more about it and see how they're doing, and they just said, you know what, I really don't want to talk about it right now. They both have said that. They said, just give us some time, Dan, and then we can get together and talk about it, but right now it's just been too soon.
Well, like I told you before, it doesn't matter whether they want to come on the show or not. If they ever decide they'd like to talk with me about what happened that day, I'll always be here for them.
Oh, don't worry. I will let them know.
Well, I appreciate it. Did any of the similarities between this encounter and the first one you had surprise you?
Yeah, this one had dog-style legs with the hocks. The first ones didn't. Totally different. But they were big and muscular. They weren't skinny at all. Nothing was skinny on this animal at all. It just magnified it because of the height and the width of it. It just totally took me by surprise. And with the avatar that you have on your show, the only difference was the ears were longer and more pointy on the top of its head compared to the avatars. Otherwise, everything else in there looked exactly like that.
That had to be so creepy to see this Dogman standing right in front of you that looks so similar to the avatar that you've seen so many times.
It was. That was the first thing that came to mind was, oh, that looks just like the avatar on the show. I mean, I couldn't believe it. It was like photo negative, basically. And it was boom, it was right there. And Michelle and Patty didn't understand what I was talking about when I mentioned that, but I explained it to them on the way home about the show and so forth, and also about the avatar that you have on there. And I said, if you get a chance, get on there and take a look, because it looks exactly like that when it was squatting down.
After they had a chance to look at that avatar, did they ever get back with you?
Not yet. Not yet. They're still trying to process this, and it may take a while. I don't know. I'm not going to push them because, I don't want any pushback on it. They know I care about them and love them, and that I'm going to be there for them. If they want to talk about it, they know I'm here. And I'm going to tell them about making sure that if they need to talk to you, that they'll talk to you as well.
Well, I'm glad they know that. Like I said, I'll always be here. For the listeners who haven't listened to episode 171, Dan, please tell them about the encounter you and Ron had that you told us about on that show.
We were up in the Santa Cruz Mountains, and we were up there camping. Ron knew the area better than I did because he lived closer, and he knew where the campsite was, so he took us up there. And we had already made camp, and I asked him about the area, and he told me about they had a pond that was close by where the animals would go to drink. And I said, well, I'm going to go up the hiking trail and head on up there and see what I can see. And as I was walking to get to the pond, I passed by this meadow, and I noticed movement down in the meadow. And I took my binoculars out, and I looked down in there, and that's when I saw the deer buck that had been taken down by these two black wolves. And I'm sitting there, and I'm looking at this, and it comes to me, there's no wolves in California. There hasn't been any timber wolves in California in decades. But there they are, two large black wolves feasting on this deer carcass. So I went down the trail further, and there was a large pine tree that I wanted to take a position of advantage of so I could look at this closer. And when I got there, I stepped on a branch, and it went crack. And that alerted the two dogmen down in the meadow. And they both raised their heads up, and they were looking around with their heads to see where that came from. And I said, oh, crap, now they're looking for me. So I stood there, and soon afterwards, Ron came up behind me up the trail, and I looked in the binoculars, and I told him, I said, hey, get your binoculars out and look down in the meadow. Tell me what you see. And he goes, what the heck is that? And I said, that's two werewolves. I said, they took that deer buck down, and they've been feasting on it since I got here. And the male dogman had stood up, and we're looking at this going, holy crap. And it was huge. It was a large male. The only difference was it didn't have the dog-like legs. It had man-style legs, which scared me more than anything because of all the research I've done with your show and reading up. The majority of the sightings have been with dog-like legs. These didn't have dog-like legs. They had man-style legs. It scared the crap out of me. And it's standing there and it's growling at us. And I'm thinking, oh, crap, it's honed in on us and it knows where we're at. So that's when me and Ron took our guns out and we were getting ready. And then it took two steps toward us and we said, oh, crap. And I told Ron, I said, if it takes any more steps towards us, if it takes one more step, we're going to light it up. And he said, okay, no problem. And we both got our guns out and we got it pointed at this thing. And all of a sudden, for some unknown reason, I don't know what happened, they both turned their heads westward. And they were looking at the horizon westward, and then they got back down on all fours, and then they ran out of the meadow to the north of the meadow and out of sight. And that's the last we saw of them on that encounter.
Because that was your first encounter, is it safe to say that it shook you up more than this one did?
You know what, it did, Vic, but this second one, with the dog-like legs and the terrain that it was in, really upset me. And it just hammered the point about not going into areas that are named after this stuff. You don't do it. You just don't do it.
Did you speak with David Pilatus before or after the second encounter?
It was before. I talked to David before that, and he told me about a section in the book, The Devil's in the Details, where it listed the missing person that was missing in that area.
I see. Were all three of you armed when you had this most recent encounter?
Yes, we were. All of us had our firearms with us, but we never drew them. We didn't have a reason to. We just saw the creature and turned and got out of there. And I just stayed to the rear to make sure nothing snuck up behind us. Now, if I would have saw something, I would have pulled line, but we never had the opportunity to. It never came back up and came near us.
Did you happen to see a tail on him?
Yes, there was. When he got up and turned to run away, I noticed the tail on him. And it was a bushy tail, just like a wolf's.
How did it compare to the tail that you see in the Avatar?
It was bushier, larger, but I think it's because of the size of the animal. It wasn't wagging or anything. It was just hanging there. But yeah, I think it's because it was a larger creature.
Yeah, that might be why it looked the way it did. Did howling the way it did make it harder for you to deal with this encounter?
It upset me because that howl goes through your body like ice. And it scares you. It just unnerves you a little bit. Now, I had the presence of mind to stay focused, like I said, because of my training. But yeah, I was scared. And like I told you before, I'm not scared of much, but these things scare me. And the reason it scares me so much is because you've been raised that these things don't exist. And when you see them there, standing in front of you, it gives you a shock. And I thought after my first encounter, I would never see another one again, ever. And what happens? Boom, you see it again. Different style than the first one. This one had dog legs, the other ones had man legs. And that also unnerves you because there's different kinds. You never know what you're going to come up on. And the different terrain. That's another thing that upset me because I thought, you know what, there might be a bad area, but I'm sure I'm not going to see a Dogman up here. And look what happens. The Dogman shows up. And it's like, oh, my Lord. And then if that's the case, if they could be seen in the woods, they could be seen in the desert, there's nothing that says that they can't be seen in urban areas as well.
And they are. They definitely are, unfortunately.
Yeah, the only thing that I thought when I thought about that is the older movie Wolfen, and that explains it to a T. And I know it's fiction, but if you ever watch that movie, it explains why people disappear. And that's exactly what I was thinking about.
Don't lose sight of the fact that we're conditioned from childhood to fear things that look like werewolves, so it's only expected that you would respond the way you did when you have a sighting like that.
I'd agree 100%, Vic. That's exactly what the conditioning is, and that's why people are so shocked and so scared when they see these things, because first they probably think, I'm seeing things, it's not there, and then they blink their eyes, and guess what? It's still there. And it's real, and it's breathing, and it's looking at you, and you can hear it. That's a big, big difference.
Oh, sure, no doubt about that. Are your days of venturing deep into the wilderness over now that you had this second experience with one?
I'm never going to go in an area that's named after the devil or Satan or anything else, that's for sure. But I'm still going to go in the woods. I'm not much of a desert person anyway. I just went because the girls were going there and I didn't want anything to happen to them. But I'm not going to let it scare me out of going in the woods. Like I said, I never go alone. I've always got a partner with me. I always got the GPS rescue beacon with us, plenty of food and water. I'm armed, got a rescue blanket with us. I do it all, and I make sure that my partner does as well, whoever's with me, either my children or my friends or whatever that goes up there with me. I'm not going to let this run me out of the woods, Vic. I love the woods. I have since I was a child. I'm not going to give this up.
Well, it goes without saying you must have a strong constitution to not give up going into the woods after the second encounter.
No, and like I've told you before, I carry special ammo in my weapon with the silver tips just to play my cards right, but I don't know if that's superstition or what, but it makes me feel better. But I am not going to get run out of there. But the one thing that people need to realize is that this is not our realm. We're just visitors. It's their realm. The animals own the forest. Okay, that's their living room. We just come and visit, and we need to realize that, and we also need to respect it. Okay, I've gone back after this encounter and started going over the things that my Native American elders taught me about certain things that you do and don't do in the woods, and I'm going to make sure that I start practicing it because I have been lax in doing that.
What did they warn you not to do?
Never whistle at night in the woods. Ever. You never do that because it brings things to you. Whatever's out there and hears your whistles is going to come and investigate you and find out what's going on. Okay? The elders tell you, never whistle at night. Also, if you're out there at night, you're camping out at night and you have a fire, you stay within the firelight. You don't go past the firelight. Because once you go outside the firelight, you're not safe. Because you're in darkness. This has been taught me ever since I was a child by my native elders. Because I'm part Cherokee. And other nations also teach this to the children. I have a Shoshone brother who's told me the same thing. I have a Crow sister that has told me the same thing. So you never whistle at night out in the woods, and you don't go outside the firelight.
After Kat Hansen, a Choctaw medicine woman, warned us about the dangers of whistling at night in episode 12, you won't have to worry about me ever doing that again. Count on that.
I should have remembered that because I heard that show, and like I said, I've been lax. After this encounter, I won't be lax any further. I'm going to do what my native elders tell me to do, and I'll probably get smudged with sage before I go out anywhere anymore, because I don't want this to happen anymore. I really don't.
Oh, I don't want you to have any other encounters either. Hopefully you won't have any more.
2 encounters is too many.
Oh, yeah, I'd say it is. Did this encounter change anything for you that your first encounter didn't?
It made me more aware that these things can be anywhere at any time. I didn't expect it in a desert-type setting. And there it was. It appeared. And that took me aback more than anything else. And the howl. The howl, I'm never going to forget that howl. I've heard it in dreams since. And it really scares you. It does. Because you see the creature and it's standing there and it's making that howl. Everything else is quiet, so you don't hear anything else except that low, moaning howl. And like I said, it goes through you like ice, turns your blood to ice.
Yeah, it's bad enough they look the way they do. When they start howling like that, yeah, that just makes it even worse.
Yes, it does. And that just makes the encounter not only more memorable because you're going to remember that, but scarier.
It does. Because you've had 2 experiences with them, do you think you're more susceptible to encounters than most people?
I've been contemplating this, and I've been thinking about this, and I've had other people tell me that it's probably true because they think the same way. But I think because of my Cherokee, Scottish, Irish, and German bloodline, I think I'm more susceptible to see things like that than others, because those are all tribal people, and I think that has a lot to do with it. I really do.
I wouldn't be surprised if it does. Which encounter was harder for you to deal with, the first one you had with Ron or this one with Patty and Michelle?
This latest one, Vic, because I had to make sure that Patty and Michelle were protected and safe, and that was my primary concern. And as long as we were able to get out of there in one piece and stuff, then mission was accomplished. But that had more of a taxing on my nerves than anything else.
I'll bet it did take you a while to get over this one. That's not easy.
No, I haven't got over it, Vic. I'm still having dreams once in a while. Not nightmares, just dreams. And I think it's going to take me a while to get over this because it just took me totally by surprise because I didn't expect it because of the terrain we were in.
Well, I hope you do get over it sooner rather than later.
Oh, you and me both.
Do you know if Patty and or Michelle have been researching Dogman extensively now that you had that experience, or do you think it's going to take more time for them to be that comfy with it?
I think it's going to take more time because of the shock to their systems after seeing something like this. And after listening to me about the area, when I tried to tell them not to go there and they went there anyway, I think they feel a little bit of guilt. But I think eventually they're going to come out of it and they're going to want to talk to me about it. And they even said, give us some time, Dan, and we'll sit down together and talk about this and we'll get this out. Right now, I don't feel like talking about it. Michelle told me that, and Patty did too. She goes, no, I want to wait, and then we'll talk about it later. So I think that's the direction they're going right now.
You told us earlier that they weren't comfortable with it enough to talk about it, but I just wondered if maybe on their own, in their own time, that maybe they would research it to try and help comfort themselves. I just wondered about that.
Well, I told them about the show. I told them that that's how I've done my research is through your show. So I told them where to go and how to get a hold of the show. So hopefully they'll take me up on that and they'll do that.
I hope they do. Do you know if they've given up on hiking now that they had that experience?
You know what? These are 2 tough girls, and they've been through a lot. I don't think that's going to scare them out of there, but I think if they do go again, they're probably going to want me to go with them, which I don't mind, you know. But, yeah, after I told them what David says about what to do out there, they both looked at each other and said, oh, we're definitely going to start doing this from now on, because I think they both solo hiked before. I don't think that's ever going to happen again now.
Oh, I bet it's not. And yeah, I figured they'd pretty much sworn off going to any place with the prefix devil or monster or anything like that. So, yeah, I'm not surprised to hear that.
No, they've told me we're never going to a place named after something like that ever again.
Oh, I'll bet. Well, it's about time for us to get out of here, Dan. Before we do you have any closing comments you'd like to share?
Just that people need to be aware that these creatures can be anywhere. They can be in the forest. They can be in the desert. They could be in the urban areas in the cities. You don't know. If I can see one in the forest and then the second one in the desert, there's no telling where these things are. And you have to be prepared and on your guard at all times. That's why it's always smart to always be with somebody, not be secluded by yourself anywhere. And just make sure that you take David Paulides' suggestions when you go out camping in the woods, because they can save your life.
That sounds like good advice to me. Well, thanks again so much for your time, for coming on the show and telling us about that experience, Dan. I really appreciate it.
You bet, Vic. No problem.
Thanks again so much. Have a great night.
Thank you, sir. Bye-bye.
Bye. Before we actually do get out of here, I've got some news I want to share with you, and then after that I'm going to read an encounter for you. First to the news. Because of all the strange things that have been happening to the Dogman Encounters YouTube channel, I've got good reason to believe that there's a strong possibility that YouTube's going to take the channel down. When that might happen, I don't know. Is that definitely going to happen? That too, I don't know. But I wanted to share something with you. If you like listening to the show, don't worry. Even if the channel is taken down, the show will continue. I'm not going to stop it. If something like that does happen and you'd like to continue listening, it's going to be in your best interest to go to dogmanencounters.com/podcast. On that page of the website, it'll tell you everything you need to know about how to continue listening to the show. Alright, let's get on to this encounter. This encounter took place in Lee County, Florida, and reads, When I was 11 years old, my mother was in the hospital and my sister and I had to stay with our grandparents in a rural community outside of Fort Myers, Florida. Buckingham was defined by miles of pine trees, cypress swamps, and cow pastures, and their house was situated right in the thick of it. To get there, you had to travel down a long gravel road that led to a driveway that was half a mile long. There were so many pine trees surrounding the house that they blocked out the sun most of the time, keeping it pretty shady in both the front and back yards even in the heat of summer. My grandfather built the house himself in the 1960s. Maybe it was the age of the house or the darkness that shrouded it, but it always gave everyone a creepy feeling. It always felt like you were being watched, whether you were outside on the porch or sitting near a window inside. During Christmas gatherings, I refused to sit with my back to the window. During the winter, we would have bonfires in the clearing next to the house. There were a few times when it would get unbearably quiet outside. The crickets would stop chirping and an eerie silence would set in. The only sound was the sound of the fire crackling. My grandpa would start talking to break the silence. A few months before my sighting, something really unsettling happened. My sister, aunt, young cousins, and I were sitting by the fire one evening when everything started to get quiet again. Suddenly, the silence was broken and we heard something loud crashing through the brush and running through the tall grass. The tree line was about 100 feet away from the fire, and in its glow we could see a large black shadow quickly ducking down into the grass. My aunt gathered us up and told our uncles and grandparents not to let any of us outside because there was a bear or a large dog hiding in the grass. When they went to check it out, it was gone. Fast forward to a few months later when we were staying with them for a few weeks. In the living room there were 2 slender windows on each side of a large fireplace. In the backyard, the tree line was about 10 feet from the house, and when you looked out the window, all you could see were pine trees. For some reason, those 2 small windows didn't have curtains. My sister and I had been staying there for a week when it happened. We were sleeping on the 2 couches in the living room. I was on the one facing the fireplace. The lights were off and the blue glow of the night came through the small window on the left. I was worried about my mom, so I'd been having trouble sleeping. I then heard something crackling outside. The window was about 5 feet above the ground, and I saw a large shadow slowly creep out from the pine trees. A face suddenly came into the window. It was so large that it took up the whole thing. It was dog-like with large teeth, pointed ears, and amber-colored eyes that seemed to glow. I looked right at its face. The eyes were something that I'll never forget. They weren't like a dog or a bear's eyes. They seemed to burn right into your soul. They were evil. The worst part was that the thing looked like it was smiling. Its lips were pulled back in a ghastly sneer. I covered my face with my blanket, trying to pretend that it wasn't there or that I was just dreaming. Then I heard a scraping noise at the window. I slowly lifted my blanket from my face, and only my eyes were exposed. The thing was still there with that awful grimace on its face. It was using its finger to scratch at the window. It had hands, not paws. They were fingers with long, sharp claws on them. I urinated my pants, but dare not move. I knew that the window was too small for it to get in, even if it did break the window. I spent what felt like hours crying under the blanket, hoping that the thing would go away. The scraping continued. After what felt like a lifetime, it finally stopped. When I looked back up, the thing had gone away. I didn't sleep for the rest of the night. The next morning, I told my aunt and grandparents about what I had seen. My grandpa laughed and told me that it was probably a big great horned owl. My grandma and aunt, on the other hand, believed me. My aunt and I went out back to inspect the area and found large dog-like footprints in the mud outside the window. My grandma covered the windows with sheets, and my aunt slept in the living room with us for the remainder of our stay. We weren't allowed outside after sunset. I didn't even go out during the day anymore. I had nightmares about this for years after. My curtains at home always had to be closed at night. As time went by, I began to write the thing off as a bad dream or a big dog, but I never forgot that face. Years later, I discovered the Beast of Bray Road and decided that the creature I'd seen must have been a Dogman. My parents always told me that werewolves weren't real, but I guess they were wrong. Last Christmas, I brought the event up to my aunt. She said that she used to see all kinds of things in that house and that those 2 windows always freaked her out. She'd hear howling noises at night and sometimes see glowing eyes in the trees. A family of cats came around for food and then mysteriously went missing. The mother cat was found a week later with its head torn off. The house was sold years ago, and the area is a lot more populated now than it was back then. Whatever that thing was, it seems like urban development has taken over its home. Time, 2 a.m. Date, April of 1996. Well, that's going to do it for tonight's show, everyone. Thanks as always so much for listening. I appreciate all of you. Have a great night. If you've had a Dogman encounter of your own and would like to speak with me, whether in private or on the show, please go to dogmanencounters.com and submit a report. I'd love to hear from you.